Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I am your host, Dylan Muss, and I have with me Taylor Field, the mentor. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing good. Doing good. My voice is on the mend just in
Yeah,
time for side quest.
you're sounding much clearer, much
Mm.
better. And I'm sure you have a lot more energy, so I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, I'm excited for this episode. This is gonna be a fun set of topics here. Really, the main thing today is that the Game Awards nominees for 2024 were dropped today. So we're going to talk about some of the controversy going on there that's getting people all fired up. And then we just have a bunch of games we've been playing as well on the side. So lots of I have quite a few to talk about there. So it's going to be a fun episode. And how about we just get right into it? So yeah, here we go. The Game Awards 2024 is coming up in about a month. I think it's maybe less than a month. I think it's like December 9th or whatever it is. Usually like that Thursday, right? Pocket in the kind of second-ish week in December there. So it's coming up quick, and usually around this time, mid-November, is when they announce the nominees for all the categories. And, every time it happens, there's always some people who are a bit cheesed that their favorite game didn't make it in Game of the Year or some other category. Or, there's some of these weird categories like ongoing game, and there might be odd things that pop up there, and people have questions here or there. But I don't think people are normally cheesed for the most part. And then when it comes to the live show, when we get winners, I think that's when people get more fired up. And they're like, how did this win? How did that lose to this? This thing shouldn't have even been in this category, la 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 la. But I think this time is the first time I've ever really seen people fired up and mad and salty about the nominees list in like a really genuine way. And I think the big reason for that is that across many categories, I think like 4 or 5 categories, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, the Elden Ring DLC, is up for nomination, including in Game of the Year. So a lot of people don't like this because they feel, oh, this is DLC. This should not be a contender for Game of the Year. This isn't a game. This is an expansion for a game. What's going on here? Game Awards, Jeff, what are you doing? So a lot of questions. Just throwing it at you right away, Taylor. How do you feel about that? Are you on the side that DLC expansions should not be included in these categories like Game of the Year, or do you find it to be okay?
I think that DLC should not be counted as game of the year. That's it's an afterthought, right? An after additive to a completed game. Like that base game is already in the running for it or whatever. I can't remember what it was back then, but like that's that
Yeah.
that base game, that's your submission. Anything after that fact, I mean that's come on. That's like double dipping.
Yeah, yeah, it did win back in 2022. It won Game of the Year there when it wasn't even a competition. It just swept the floor with all sorts of categories. So yeah, I wanted to break this down a little bit because I do feel like there is, and this happens every year, and I try and clear some of these things up because not that I know more about people, but if you just go on the FAQ on GameAwards.com and they tell you how all this stuff works, and I think people are always surprised at how it works. And so I just want to talk about a little bit of it here because even just the word you use there, and I don't know if you just use that word, but like you're saying like submitted. It's like these games are not submitting anything. I don't know if that's what you meant, but I just like in general, like it has nothing to do with any company submitting a thing. It's not Jeff like picking arbitrary things. It's down to this jury of the Game Awards that I mean, Jeff picks the jury, of course, so that's part of it. But the jury is all sorts of different publications, like IGN and GameSpot, and then like even podcasts. Like I think Kind of Funny is in there, and some other bigger podcasts, and all sorts of crazy. There's some wild ones. If you look through the list, there's I think like the CBC is on there. I was joking about last year. Like there's some strange additions that you don't normally think of as like that's where the gaming conversations is happening. I don't even know many of these companies that are part of this jury. But I want to read this straight from the FAQ just to give people some context of like how this stuff happens and how we got to this point where Elden Ring DLC is in here in the top 5. So this is once again from the FAQ on the Game Awards website. How are nominees selected? Nominees for most categories of the Game Awards are chosen by an international jury of over 100 global media and influencer outlets, selected for their history of critical video game evolution. And then there's a thing about specialized juries. That's for like accessibility and best adaptation, so some other categories. And then ballots are tabulated, and the 5 games that appear the most on the most ballots are put forth as nominees. In the event of a tie, 6 or more games will be announced in a category. I don't think there's ever been more than 6. Just putting that out there. And then Game Awards, yeah, of course they put this in here. Game Awards producer Jeff Keighley is not a member of the jury and does not vote on the nominees or winners. Similarly, the Game Awards Advisory Board has no involvement in the awards process and learns of the results at the same time as the general public, which I do find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that Jeff doesn't know the winner until the person on stage flips open that, even whoever's like printing that thing, like I assume that they would know who the winner is. So there's maybe a little bit of funkiness there. So that's a bit strange. And then, of course, winners are determined by a blended vote between the voting jury, which has about 90% weight, and then a public fan vote, which is worth 10% of the weight. And so everyone, anyone listening to this, you can go make an account on Game Awards and do your votes there, and you'll be part of that big bundle of 10%. And then there was one other part I wanted to... Oh, yeah. There's a section here. How are live service games handled? The Game Awards recognizes that many games are ongoing services that evolve over time with new content, features, and improvements. Games released in previous years are eligible in all award categories, as long as the jury feels their inclusion is merited due to new content improvements or service updates. In addition, the best ongoing game category specifically recognizes titles that continue to provide value to customers. And then just this one last thing. Are DLCs, expansion packs, remakes, remasters eligible? The Game Awards aims to recognize the best creative and technical work each year, irrespective of the format of that content's release. Expansion packs, new game seasons, DLCs, remakes, and remasters are all eligible in all categories if the jury deems the new creative and technical blah, 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 goes on there. So if you read that, and I mean, this has happened before, like, I was joking to Muds earlier that, like, if the jury wanted to, and of course this would be like a coup, you would need like a lot of jury members to come together, they could vote for absolutely any game ever. End of sentence, period, right there. So my joke was like, oh yeah, they could just, if everyone wanted to vote for Super Smash Bros. Melee in the year 2024, that would win, because there is nothing that the Game Awards will do to stop you from voting absolutely any game ever to be in any calendar year. Like, it's kind of complete nonsense, and that's where I just feel like they really need to button down on it, and I think it becomes a really murky question for a lot of these things of like what is eligible here or there. But I'm in the same boat as you. I think my knee-jerk reaction, because we talked about this on After 9 on the weekend, actually. The nominees hadn't come out yet. We were just theorizing that apparently... what happened over the weekend is that Jeff Keighley or whoever posted that, like, oh, by the way, any DLC is allowed in any category. And it was kind of like, why would he tweet that out if, like, Elden Ring wasn't about to be in this nominees and he knew people were going to be mad about it? So he was kind of, like, preparing for people to fire on him in that way. So it's funny that he did that, and then, of course, it ended up being the case. So, yeah, my knee-jerk reaction is like, that's really weird. No, take that stuff out of there. And then I was thinking about it more today, and especially after we got the official announcement, seeing it there, that Elden Ring is part of the announcement. And I do feel like it gets pretty murky, Taylor. Maybe you can help me with some examples here. But I was thinking about the case of, here's an example. Spider-Man 2018 came out. Cool. 2 years later, Spider-Man Miles Morales comes out. It is a separate game. It's not a DLC. It's like half the price. It's, can beat it in a few hours. It's the same city, but they just threw some snow on it. Of course, there's new villains, new story, and all that. But in my opinion, the amount of difference between like Miles Morales and the Elden Ring DLC, as someone who's played and finished both of those things, is about the same. So it's like, okay, if Elden Ring had decided to do like a small spin-off game instead and released it that way because the DLC is completely disconnected from the main game, then I don't think people would have an issue with it just because of the way it was released. And so that's where things get a little murky, where it's like, I don't know, I feel like Miles Morales, that was eligible in categories. I think it might have even been a nominee for Game of the Year. But I don't think anyone would have thought any differently about that game had it been a DLC for Spider-Man in terms of like the quality or the length or any of the price, any of that sort of stuff. So it gets a bit murky there. I don't know if you can think of any other examples where there's like DLCs that feel very substantial for like where the line is. While you think about that a little bit, like another one for me is one of my favorite games, Outer Wilds, not to be confused with the Outer Worlds, but Outer Wilds released a DLC a couple years later called Echoes of the Eye, which was built into the base game. Like, you couldn't play it without the base game, but it was like completely its own thing. It was the same length as the main game. I think it was a free add-on. Maybe it cost something. I don't actually remember how much it was. And like something like that to me is like seems totally fair game for like a Game of the Year contender. And so I don't know where the bias is within myself to say like, oh, well, where's the line of like what we allow and don't allow for these kind of things? And if like all these outlets, like an IGN is going to put Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree as one of their Game of the Years, then like why shouldn't they just put it in their ballot when they're submitting to the Game Awards? So I know I just rambled like a million things at you there. But I don't know. I do feel like the more I've thought about it, the more it is a really complicated thing to decide like where that line is of when we decide. Like even if I was to be in the Game Awards shoes in Jeff's position, how do I decide which games should be considered eligible? What is DLC versus what is an expansion versus like how close a remake? You know, it's not easy to make these precursors.
No, it's really not. And I mean, I guess everyone has their own predetermined kind of, I guess, ways of looking at it, like what will qualify and what would not, and where they stand with it. So I think the voting is going to be very, very interesting when you look at it and break it down. Um, I was trying to think of an example. I thought, well, maybe Halo 3 ODST is kind of like an expansion built off of like Halo 3, but it's well, maybe more like Reach. I can't remember. Maybe Halo 3, but it's still standing on its own 2 feet as its own main game.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I was trying to think maybe
Well, that's a
Borderlands
good
has
point too,
something
because
like
like
that.
ODST came with like an extra disc for Halo 3 with like new multiplayer maps, and I think that was that like Firefight.
Yes,
Was that there, or was that
that's
released
right.
in-
Firefight.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like that's a good point too, where it's like, okay, you buy this separate game, but half of it is DLC for another game. Like, I don't know that. Like, where do you weigh that in like the calculus? And of course, that was pre-Game Awards days or like these Game Awards. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, there's a lot of things that release in very strange ways, right? Or
Yeah.
like early access, like being another thing that is in one of the FAQ things is talking about early access games. But yeah, it's like there is an opportunity for games to double dip, and it like it doesn't fall on the game makers. You know, even in the case of like Miles Morales, my example there, and maybe that's just also my bias because I don't love Miles Morales as a package, and I was kind of underwhelmed by it. But like, is that even Insomniac's decision, or is that just like a Sony decision? So it's like it doesn't even necessarily come down to the developer of like if they put it as a DLC or if they spin it off into like a separate box art. And is like that going to be our differentiator? If a game has like its own box art, does it get like considered to be, if it has its own space on a shelf, like is that what it takes to be a game of the year nominee? Like I don't think it's that easy. So yeah, and the weird thing, the extra super duper weird thing about this to me is that best ongoing game is a category, as I mentioned there in that overhaul, and they call this awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. So that's like kind of the DLC category. Usually it is for more like live service games and things that have battle passes. Like, of course, Fortnite's in here, Destiny 2. But the funniest thing to me is best ongoing game does not have Elden Ring. The DLC is not in here, which is like the one category that I feel like it should be kind of bucketed and put into. So it's just broken and weird. And another example that I found when looking through this is this year they have best fighting game, as they do every other year. And one of the games nominated here is Multiverses, which is kind of a weird case, right? Where it came out a couple years ago and then they killed it, took it offline, and then they brought it back this year and relaunched it. But Multiverses won a game award 2 years ago for best fighting game. So it already won in whatever state that was deemed good enough to win a game award in. But then they took it offline and now it's back. And so now it seems like a new release, and now it's nominated again, and it could potentially win again. Which to me, like, that's just as egregious as the Elden Ring thing. And of course, no one cares about that because it's Multiverses and it's best fighting game. It's not game of the year. But like, that is just as egregious, if not worse, than like the case of Elden Ring, because it's like, there's new content here. There's new characters and stuff. And actually, they just released a new season that has like Raven from Teen Titans. I checked out her moveset. She was pretty cool. So I might go play a few more games in there. But there's weird stuff like this that happens all over the place in Game Awards history. And I feel like normally it's just not the Game of the Year category, which is why people don't tend to not care as much. But yeah, Multiverses is another perfect example of like how broken these categories are, because the Game Awards doesn't police anything and they let you do whatever the F you want as a member of the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't even think I mentioned this, but like the Game of the Year right now, the 6 nominees are Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, DLC, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantasio. So interesting crop of games. We're going to do predictions in a couple weeks. I think that's 2 episodes from now is we're going to do official predictions. But when I looked at it, I was really surprised by this list. What do you think of that? Is there any like big snubs immediately, or do you think there's like a front runner when you think of that list?
Wukong, Front runner right there.
Really?
Yeah, I remember
think
just
so?
that blowing up all over my feeds, and I just watched some videos of it. I never played it, but I just remember seeing that this was breaking records and was just blowing it out of the water. People were
Okay.
super, super excited about it. But I'd also say Astrobot. There is a lot of
Yeah.
chatter about that one too. I think that one was really, really popular as well. So there's a few on the list I think that are definitely fitting to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really surprised by this list. I mean, the Elden Ring thing, I was less surprised because Jeff did that thing over the weekend, so he was kind of prepping us for it. I was surprised to see Black Myth in there because I feel like there was a lot of hype for that game pre-release, and then it came out and people were like, yeah, it's a decent Souls game, and so maybe me and you are just in different circles that you saw a lot more praise for it. But I even saw an article today that from IGN, I think that apparently Black Myth Wukong is the lowest rated
Oof.
Game of the Year nominee ever in Game Awards history. Like I guess just looking at like Metacritic, like the overall aggregate of reviews there, and it's like 80 something. Like it's good, but that just shows like the caliber. I think it's like low 80s, and usually the caliber is very very high for where these Game of the Year things normally are. So that's part of it. Maybe of where I was leading into it, but maybe people just enjoyed it a lot more. Sometimes you give a game an 8, and it's like your favorite. Maybe you give a movie an 8, but it might be your favorite movie of the year. Just because like that's the way some of these things work out, and when you're giving things numbers. I was very happy to see Balatro make it in here, just because, I mean, it's a game made by like one Canadian dude who just made this funny little poker game, and then it's like the hugest thing ever, and it's in like 4 or 5 categories, and to see it in Game of the Year, I thought it had a chance, but I don't think it's gonna win still. But I think the fact that it's even in there is a huge compliment, because I think the only other indie games to ever do that are Celeste and Hades, which are like 2 of the biggest indie games ever. So the fact that Balatro is kind of in that camp with them is really cool. I think the biggest shock for me was that no Helldivers 2 in the Game of the Year list. That was maybe my pick for what I thought was going to win overall, and it's not even a nominee. So I don't know what the heck happened there. It made it into a few categories, but not Game of the Year. So that was the biggest surprise. And then Astrobot, Final Fantasy, Metaphor. I expected those 3, and then it was kind of just open for the rest of them. Another thing I wanted to mention here is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier from the nominees, that ballots are tabulated, and the 5 games that appear on the most ballots are put forth as nominees. In the event of a tie, 6 or more nominees will be announced. So I don't know if this is somewhere else, but one thing I've noticed is that I think every single year there has been 6 nominees for Game of the Year, specifically that one category, meaning that there's always every year there has been a tie, which seems crazy to me. So I don't know if they just actually fudge it and they just say, whatever the top 6 are, we'll allow those for Game of the Year nominees. But it seems like a really weird coincidence to me that every single year there's been a tie. So I might have looked at it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw when I was looking through the years really quick. So I don't know, funky, something weird's going on there in my opinion, and I don't know what exactly. I don't know if you've been able to click around and see some more of these categories, see if there's anything else that looks a bit off to you. I guess another comment on like the DLC stuff is, Phantom Liberty, the Cyberpunk DLC, was all over the place on categories last year. So not just ongoing game. I think it had like maybe 3 or 4 noms across the different categories. Definitely not in Game of the Year, just because it wasn't on that caliber. But I guess people should be more prepped for this kind of thing. But even then, a couple weeks ago, me and Travis were talking because he's on hiatus now, of course. So I wanted to ask him about Game of the Year and Game Awards and things like that. And we both just completely discredited Elden Ring as like a possibility. Even though like I know these rules and I know that like that would have been a possibility, I suppose. But it just seems so weird. Like I can't imagine being a jury member and wanting to put it in there. It's like, also for me, it's a good DLC. Don't get me wrong. But it's not like Game of the Year, It's not one of the top 5 or top 6 things that came out this year. So I was very surprised by some of that. 2 other weird things that stood out to me. Maybe this isn't weird, but I just want to get your take on this. Knuckles, Best Adaptation, is a nominee. What are your thoughts on that?
That's some straight up bullshit. That's not a great adaptation.
Adaptation's always the funniest one to me because like there are usually only like 5 or 6 video game adaptations that release in a year, or maybe a couple more if you factor in some smaller animated things. So it kind of feels like whatever came out is going to be a nominee regardless of quality, and then there's usually 1 or 2 kind of like front runnery things. So I thought that was funny. The other one that I thought was really odd is, so Diablo 4 did have a new DLC that came out this year, but Diablo 4, just like the base game, was one of the games in innovation and accessibility this year. So I don't know if the DLC just somehow added a bunch of accessibility stuff, but like the thing on the nominee doesn't even state the DLC. It just states the base game. And so that's another thing where, like, once again, you can nominate a game from any year ever. And I don't, but it just seems really odd to me that Diablo is one of those nominees. So once again, these categories are weird and the jury can do whatever they want. And Jeff is not going to stop them until there is a coup and some weird game like Katamari Damacy wins Game of the Year, even though it came out in like 2007, you know, like until that happens and there's some big coalition of people who want to troll Keeley, then, and they wouldn't do that because I think if anyone did try to troll him with a weird pick like that and it's obviously a troll, then next year they would not get the call back to be a jury member. So I don't think they'll ever do that. So we just have to hope that they pick things that the general public also generally agrees with. So we'll see what happens there. Because I think Elden Ring has a pretty good shot of winning the whole thing now, knowing that it is even in there now, and definitely with 10% fan vote. I mean, that might be the most popular game on the list. So, you know, good chance it gets an extra 10% bump from people voting out in the wild. I will not vote that way. I'll put my vote on Balatro. Want to see the indie game succeed there, but yeah. Any other thoughts on all this stuff?
I mean, I took a quick gander at best multiplayer, and I just thought it was funny to see Super Mario Party Jamboree in there.
That was funny. Yeah, that was odd. You'd think like family game, but multiplayer seemed like an odd place for. I guess they could have like a battle royale mode, I suppose.
It's just weird seeing it sandwiched between Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Tekken 8, and Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. It's funny to see it in there. But I also like that they listed as Nintendo Cube, which is that like
Cube?
Nintendo Cube? Yeah.
Where is that? Sorry.
Here, I'll share my screen so you can.
That's on best multiplayer.
Take a gander. Yes, it is.
Nintendo
right
Cube.
here, Nintendo Cube.
Weird. I guess that's maybe the name of the. Because
Switch
like
2
all
confirmed.
Nintendo's teams, like they don't have fun names like all the Xbox studios or the PlayStation studios. They're just called like Internal Development 2, you know, like that kind of thing. And I guess Nintendo Cube is maybe the name of one of them, or that must be what it is. But I've never heard that name before. So
I've never heard it either. Yeah.
But actually, you mentioned there with the multiplayer and the Black Ops, like Call of Duty in general. That's another one for me. It's like so often these Call of Duty games year to year, there's so little like change or new with them, and it's like something like an Elden Ring and that DLC, like that to me seems more new than some Call of Duty games that come out. And those are always eligible in every category every year, as they should be because they're a new game. So I don't know. I think people who are super salty about this, like I think I got less salty as the day went on. I still don't want it in there. I would like if Elden Ring was like kind of stuck and ongoing there. And I think Jeff Keighley, just outside of this, should put some barriers on what can be allowed. Like that multiverse is a thing, again, I think is incredibly stupid that it's allowed to be here kind of twice. But once again, it could be there every year for the rest of time because there's nothing to stop it from that. So I think there needs to be put more barriers there. But I think people should like maybe think about that and just see like there's a lot of other examples of stupid things that make it through all the time. So I feel like it's more of just like an overall Game Awards issue, not just necessarily this one weird case. Because I saw people online today being like, I can't believe they changed the rules of the Game Awards to allow Elden Ring DLC. But it's like this has been the case of every year, and there's always weird cases like this. So people just like obviously aren't paying attention to the rules, but the rules are weird. So I don't blame people for not just like knowing how these things work because it's not how you would expect, I suppose. There are other Game Award things out there like the BAFTAs and the DICE Awards, and I think those ones, like the DICE Awards, I think the way it works is it's like mostly only other game developers, so other people, other studios, and they, you know, are given like, here's this category, you have to play all 8 of these games, and then you do like a roundtable discussion with other developers who are on that roundtable, and you figure out who's the winner of that category. So if you want like a better take of like what actually deserves to win and not just like a raw popularity contest what the Game Awards is, there are other awards for that. You know, we just have to see the Game Awards as like the fun entertainment-y Oscars one that we go to for mostly the announcements, and then we also sometimes get enthused with some of the award wins or losses. So that's the way I see it, at least. Interesting case. Let's take a quick break, Taylor. Let's cool down a bit here, and we'll be right back talking about some of the games that we have been playing. Okay, we are back. We have a few things on the docket here. I want to bring up one to start here. So, when possible, Taylor, I like to have synergy between what's going on in Sidequest and what's going on like the Geekverse main feed, whether that's like big news topic, or usually it's like a big movie thing. So like, Alien Romulus came out, we did the Alien Isolation retrospective over here. X-Men 97 came out, we did an X-Men roster. When we were doing all the Lord of the Rings releases for Rings of Power Season 1, we did like a Lord of the Rings episode. So I try to have these synergy moments when I can. And I have the jankiest synergy ever this week, because last week we did the Gladiator retrospective, because Gladiator 2 is coming out this week. To my knowledge, I don't know if there's a Gladiator game. I don't think there is. But what I downloaded and checked out for a few hours.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're going to say.
Ryse, Son of Rome. I was just cruising around on Game Pass. I wanted to download something new. Not necessarily new as like 2024 new, but just something I haven't played before. And I saw Ryse there, and I was in the mood. I was like, I want to get in the Coliseum. I want to get in the arena. I want to chop some people up as a gladiator right now. And so I gave this game a download. You played this one, right, back in the day when it came out?
A long time ago.
Yeah, like, did you get it like launch day kind of thing?
I didn't get it. I didn't buy it, but it was a launch day. I went over to my friend's house when he bought it, and we were playing it. So
yeah. So it's an interesting case to talk about this game, because I feel like no one, when they're talking about this game, ever actually talks about the game itself. I feel like people just talk about, oh, I can't believe this was Xbox One's like launch title. What is such a bad thing to have at their launch? And I feel like no one's actually ever really talking about what the game is, or at least that's maybe how I've tuned it out. Maybe it goes in one of my ears, out the other kind of thing. But it was fun and interesting to jump back into this game. One, not even realizing the developer of it. I feel like that never gets talked about, but made by Crytek, who make all the Crysis games, of course. And I feel like, once again, that's a developer that people don't really talk about their games. They more just talk about how like crazy their engine is and how good their games look, rather than like the actual content of it. So interesting that those two things are kind of paired there. But yeah, made by the Crysis team, and not a first-person shooter like they normally make. It's a third-person gladiator action game. And yeah, I think maybe the first thing that stood out to me, especially because I'm playing this game, 10, 12 years after it came out, is that it still looks like absolutely beautiful. Like, graphics are amazing. The draw distance looking out to the city, the lighting is really good. Like some of the just flowing of like blankets and scarves and like all these things in the background. But yeah, what do you remember of your time playing this game all the way back in the day?
So I remember it being like a pretty epic scale. I remember you charging into combat. I remember the combat being pretty gory, pretty up in your face. Yeah, and I remember it like, launch titles, I get that they have a certain kind of aesthetic to them, I guess, but like Sunset Overdrive and stuff like that, they have a certain kind of like a certain piece of baggage with them that people kind of throw shade onto. But I will say that this one is definitely, I mean, it's not bad. You said it yourself. Yeah, it still looks great after all these years. And I think the combat, from what I remember, it's relatively smooth. I would give it some kudos there. And yeah, I think that, it doesn't need a sequel. Absolutely not. I don't think it need to go that far. But I think, yeah, it's they set out to do a game here in Rome and like gladiator kind of style, like Roman Legionnaire, and I think it definitely accomplishes exactly what it was supposed to do. And it was, at the time, like you're trying to test out a new console, right? Trying to emphasize and show like, hey, look how good this console can be. Like, we're building a game here that looks amazing, and like, look how well this console can showcase it, right? So the game was kind of, in my opinion, it was designed to really emphasize and maximize, like, oh wow, like the Xbox just looks so good.
Yeah, I could definitely see this, especially being back in the day where, digital games hadn't completely taken over, where if you walk into an EB Games and like up on the screen, they have like gameplay footage of random stuff playing as they always do, and you just see that game up there, and people would look at that and be like, damn, that's what the new Xbox can do. That's pretty crazy. I think in hindsight, like, that was a really smart idea for Xbox to, presumably they just funded the development of this game completely, I would think, to get Crytek to make this game. I think that's like a great developer to grab, people who are known at making beautiful games and like really technologically impressive games. I think that's a great developer to grab and try and like show off your new console with. And I think like to that extent, it seems like they kind of got the job done. Now, I don't think it's what people wanted from a launch title from Xbox. Clearly, we can look back in the history books and see that that was not the right foot forward for that console to be a success. And all these years later, they're on a completely different trajectory. But interesting history lesson. In terms of the combat, because that's what 99% of this game is. Like, you have a cutscene in a hall with some guy wearing some robe, and and then you go out and you fight up like 30 guys, and then kind of rinse and repeat that thing over and over. There's not really platforming or like puzzle solving, at least in the first like 2 or 3 hours that I've made it in. And yeah, the combat is very like, Shadow of Mordor, or like Witcher 3, Arkham style, where you're spamming that attack button, mix of a heavy attack and a light attack. Enemies blocking, okay, go for the attack that hits them off balance, and then just like hitting that parry or dodge or counter button when like that color flashes just the right way. So it's a very kind of classic combat system, and it's one that like worked for me for the first hour. And then I was just getting like so burnt out on it because it's so much like button mashing. You got to hit these guys over and over and over again, especially like as they're trying to ramp it up. They really don't ramp it up with like more interesting enemy types. They just ramp like the amount of enemies that they throw at you, which once again is probably a thing to do to like show off a new console. Like, oh, look at there's 10 enemies on screen back in these days. That was an impressive number, I suppose. And yeah, but I think the one of the funniest things to me about the combat in this game that is very Xbox coded is that in this game, like once you knock someone into this state where you can pretty much go for like a finishing blow, so you hit the finishing blow button, and then it goes into like this slow-mo attack, and it's pretty much like a quick time event where you got to hit the buttons in the right order. But instead of like them showing X or R2 or on screen, they just show like the color of the button you're supposed to hit. So like they'll put like, instead of Y, they'll just like highlight the enemy yellow, or they'll highlight them blue, or what are the other colors, red and green, that kind of thing. So they just highlight the color of the Xbox face button that you're supposed to use, which I find so cheesy. And it also like kind of takes you out of like the game, because it is this beautiful game and it's like all this Roman stuff, and then like all these yellows like highlighting big ugly blues and yellows. So it's so goofy, but I kind of love it for how goofy it is and the commitment to the bit. And even like when you're picking up objects in the world, like object will like highlight green like the A button, which I think that's actually a really fun idea, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen that done again or since. And maybe that's because a lot of games are multi-plat and they're not gonna like color code for each console and all that. But I just found that to be like such a funny little detail of this game. One thing that I found absolutely savage and egregious is that whenever in this game you go to your menu and you can like upgrade your skills, and there's all sorts of different ways you can do that, and you can upgrade it in 2 ways. There's one that's like Valor points. I forget the names of them. Valor points, and these are kind of like XP. Like, you build up this XP bar. And then there's also one that's like coins. You get coins from like, I guess, collectibles. I don't even know how these currencies work. But there's 2 ways you can buy any of these skills in the game. But there's also a 3rd way you can buy any skill in this game. And I clicked it once out of curiosity, and it popped up like the Xbox store, and like took me to these like Ryse bucks. So I could just like any skill from level 1, you could just pay to win your way to like the top. And it's so grimy the way it's in there, because it just seems like another option. Like any player's going to click that. So that's just like the grossest monetization I think I've like ever seen in a game like this. Just absolutely cracked me up. So I'm not gonna see this game all the way through. I was just looking for a little Roman nostalgia hit in the Gladiator hype here, and I really just I get burnt out of this combat really quick. I can play the game for like 20 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm mashing X and Y for just 100 times in a row to kill this room of enemies. So an interesting time to go back and check this out. And honestly, I wish I could like, so many games these days have like a story mode difficulty, which pretty much makes every enemy a one-hit kill, and you can just see the story. And I wish I could do that for this game. I wish I could turn off everything and just like walk through it as if it was like a diorama and check out the different locations and just walk around and explore. But 99% of the game once again is just like this annoying ass combat. So that's what's kind of pulling me away from it. But yeah, really, really interesting game, and I'm glad I finally played it, because I feel like I never had a concept of like what the game actually was outside of it just being kind of memed as this weird launch title for the Xbox One. There you go, Ryse, Son of Rome. We're still waiting for that sequel, as you mentioned, all these years later. Don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
I don't think so. Sticking to the realm of the historical, what's going on with Assassin's Creed 2, Taylor?
Nothing big. It's just its 50th anniversary, and so they were just dropping cool little videos of.
Is this like a frame rate update kind of thing that I saw?
That was for Syndicate, which is pretty cool. Yes, Assassin's Creed Syndicate's getting that 60 frames per second frame rate update today, I believe, for all current consoles, which is
You gonna jump
Super,
right in?
super awesome. You know, I think there's a little bit of room in my heart that I think I would like to go back and actually play that. There's more DLC that I actually have to experience a little bit more on that game and revisit.
Hmm.
But that's a great story and it's a great place. And it's actually funny enough. Um, and of all the history I was doing in my family lineage, there is a district in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now, excuse me, I'm not saying like they didn't design or put any of my family history stuff in there, but there's a district of Lambeth in that area that I think that is incorporated into Assassin's Creed Syndicate that I could walk around and I could just see it. And it's not anything major because the buildings are all pretty much carbon copy from other districts and stuff like that. But
Mm.
the fact that I think that I have to go and recheck it and make sure it's actually there. But the fact that that district of Lambeth I think is in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, it's the same district where my family had used to run their business and do all their stuff back in like the
Wow,
1800s. Like,
that's pretty
that's
cool.
actually pretty cool. Yeah, really, really cool. So, a Syndicate is definitely a game I need to go back and revisit some more.
Hmm. Right, but sorry, I interrupted you. Assassin's Creed 2, that got a update of some sort or some.
No, it was just the 15th year anniversary. And so I thought, that's just super, super cool. They did an interview with the guy that voiced Ezio from Assassin's Creed 2. He was just talking about it, and so I just wanted to shout out because it's the best Assassin's Creed game out there. So
It's kind of crazy that Assassin's Creed as a series isn't even 20 years old yet, because it just feels like there's been so many titles, and obviously they were doing the yearly thing for a while there, but it's just such a storied series and franchise, and it is like Ubisoft's flagship series, and so it feels wild that it hasn't even hit the 20-year mark, but we're getting pretty close because like the first game came out in what? Or I assume it hasn't hit 20 years yet. If you said Assassin's Creed 2
ooh,
is 15 years old, I could be wrong though.
the first one was 2007.
Oh, okay, so we're getting damn close.
We're
That
getting
20-year anniversary.
close. Yeah.
And so this is interesting. So this may be soft announcement here, but when Assassin's Creed Shadows was going to come out, we were planning on doing a 1 episode Assassin's Creed retrospective because that is a big blind spot for me as a series, and it's so important for you that I want to jump in there and check out more of these games. So I asked you like, what game should we do? And you said Assassin's Creed 2. That's the one we should do. So I still would love to do that in the new year. I forget? Did Shadows? It got a new date, right? It got kicked with the
I
date.
think it's Valentine's Day,
Okay.
2025.
So okay, that's a good to know because that's coming up pretty quick. So that might be something I'd even play over the holidays or something like that. So that is the plan. I would still like to do that if you have the bandwidth to, I don't know, jump even. You know it so well. You probably don't need to replay it, but even just jump in for a couple hours, get your hands on the sticks again. But I would really like to do that for sure. But yeah, like why that one? Why is this one your favorite? Give it some love on its 15th birthday.
The character of Ezio is just so it's just so engaging. You just latch onto that character. You latch onto the story. The story is a huge step up from the first one, especially because you're dangling between the Animus story, which is in the past with the history with Ezio, and then you're dealing with the present day where you got Desmond Miles, and so I think they do a great job at kind of creating that balance between the two characters after what the first game had introduced. Um, yeah, there's just such a dynamic there that you just engage with, as I already said, and it's just such a powerful story. And I think when the moment it starts, when you're with this character, and then it carries forth, and you just go through all these tribulations with Ezio, it's just absolutely mind-boggling, and just the characters that you're fighting and the bad guys. It's just such a dynamic story. It's one that I've got seared into my mind. Like I'll always be able to just pull from that game. It's just such a great experience. And I remember, oh, that was like the best time for that game to come out because it was like high school, grade 9, like
Yeah.
peak. But they did do a remastered. I think it was the Ezio trilogy that got remastered. But I think the
Right.
remastered was a little
That got like
underwhelming.
put on Switch. Maybe that was one of the big motivations to do that trilogy. I
I
don't even know when that
think
came out.
so. I
Yeah.
think so. But it was definitely a little bit underwhelming, I'd say.
Just go when I play it. I should just go to the original. Would you say? Jump right to Assassin's Creed 2 because they
Yeah.
probably got like I don't know. Assume maybe would they even have like a current gen patch for it? Is it kind of old enough game that they wouldn't worry about that sort of thing?
Ooh,
I'm sure
I
it's
think
still
it's
just
too
playable
old.
on any of these
It's
things.
playable. Yeah.
Yeah, or on Xbox at least. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Shouts to Assassin's Creed 2. I'm excited to check it out. Like I said, that should be in the next couple months. Jumping into that for the first time, so that'll be fun.
Oof.
Okay, moving along then. I got a few games. We have one collective game. Maybe I'll shout this one out first, then we can circle back as we like to do to the other stuff. There's a game that came out just this last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was last weekish. Called Mind Over Magnet, which I'm guessing you have not heard of, Taylor. But have you heard of the YouTube channel Game Maker's Toolkit by chance?
No.
It's I ask you that because it's like probably the most popular like video game essay YouTube channel on the internet. So I feel like I'm not like I'm shouting out some under the radar YouTube channel here when I mention that, but I'm sure a few people listening are familiar with Game Maker's Toolkit. Yeah, just like these 10 to 20-minute long video essays on all sorts of like game design things and whatnot. It's a really great channel. But anyway, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, the guy who runs that channel, his name is Mark Brown. He announced that after many years of talking about video games and critiquing them and analyzing their design, he was going to throw his hat in the ring and he was going to develop a game of his own and cover the development of that on his YouTube channel as kind of like a side series. And yeah, so he is the creator here of Mind Over Magnet. It's solely developed by him, and then he has like a composer who did the music, but everything else, the design and art and coding, all of that was done by him. And it's a game that is kind of special to me in a weird sort of way, because when he announced this project that he was going to start working on this game, it was around the same time that I started working on Potion Problem in earnest. And so it was just like funny timing. And of course, similar situation for me where like I made everything on the game except for the music. So we kind of have like a similar journey there. And even though he has no idea who I am, but just like in a parasocial way, I feel like it was a really nice companion to watch his YouTube devlog of this series as I was making Potion Problem. They're both puzzle games, so they're quite different. But still, like, he was just very open and honest about, like, you know, maybe he didn't work on the game for like 2 or 3 months in a row because it's just hard to make a game, and it's like you get burnt out, you have so many things going on. And so hearing like the highs and lows of the development, or like some really exciting time when like maybe in a couple months period a ton of things really came together, that moment when you finally add sound effects in your game and it just like makes everything feel so much better. Like there was just so many things that like really mirrored my experience making my game. And so it was a really special series, and it's cool. Like, you know, I released the game back in May. He released his here in November, so pretty close development times and release dates. And like his game's on a way different scale. Like his YouTube channel's huge, and I'm sure his game has made like a shit ton of money. And he even jokes about like how he kind of was doing game dev on like easy mode because he has so many people in his community that just like want to play test his game, and like people who like offered him code or all these suggestions, and he knows a bunch of game developers from his YouTube videos who like, you know, famous like puzzle game developers who like played his game and offered him feedback and all this stuff. So his game is definitely very polished and very impressive compared to something like that I was able to make. But I it's weird. Like even though I don't know him, I was very happy for him. It was very cool to see that the game finally came out. So once again, it's called Mind Over Magnet. I played through the whole thing. It's pretty short. It only took me about maybe 2.5 hours to play through the whole game. And it's pretty simple. It's a 2D puzzle platformer. So you play this little robot character, you move around the screen. You know, you're flipping switches, you're jumping on buttons, you're moving boxes around, that kind of thing. And then the core mechanic of the game is tied to the magnets in the title there, where you have these magnets and you're flipping the polarity on these different fields. So for example, you have a red magnet, there's a blue field that would carry you up. You grab the magnet, you jump in the field, it carries you up. That's how you solve a early puzzle in the game, that kind of thing. And then it kind of just ramps up on top of that. New mechanics get introduced. There's different magnets. You can throw some around. You can switch the polarity on the fly. All these kind of things. And it's kind of a game based around that core concept. There's like a tiny bit of a story in there, but it's really just a straight ahead puzzle game. And yeah, it's really solid. It's a fun puzzle game. You know, it's not one of the best by any means, but it's just a very solid, fun time. And yeah, like I said, like 2.5 hours long to play through it. And then I think, you know, I played through it. I was like, yeah, this was a solid, fun time. Nice job, Mark. I'm impressed by your game. It's cool. And then I think where I actually gained some additional appreciation for it is with after you beat the game, you unlock like developer commentary So as you're playing through the game, there's like these text boxes that would pop up, and then he'll kind of like talk over like, oh, when I was making this puzzle, here's what I was trying to do, or here's the purpose of this, or this is when this thing got added to the game. So just kind of like a fun behind the scenes. Funnily enough, I feel like I didn't actually gain a lot of knowledge because I'd watch all his devlogs, so I kind of knew, the broad strokes. I'd seen those things before, but it was fun playing through the game a second time, knowing the solutions to everything, and just like just speed running through the game, flying through it really quickly, and then stopping to like listen to those dialogue, the devcom things. But I feel like it was fun. I beat the game in like 40 minutes my second time through. Just blasted through it. It was really satisfying and really fun. So I don't normally replay games, especially puzzle games. Like, I would never replay a puzzle game because once you've solved the puzzle, there's not really anything to do in the game, and unless you haven't played it in like 10 years and you forget the solutions. But yeah, I had a really good time playing through this game. Definitely recommend it. It's like 10 or 12, $15, something like that on Steam. Really cheap, only on Steam right now. I don't know if he's going to do, I'm sure he'll announce soon if he's going to do a Switch port. I think this would be a really solid Switch kind of game. But yeah, definitely a good recommendation for me on that one. Check out Mind Over Magnet. It's a fun, cool, interesting game. So there you go. And then jumping along, we got two things. Taylor, do you want to talk about little Outlast Trials?
Yes. My goodness, getting back into this world has been quite exciting because they've added a lot of new stuff, I'd say. At least new antagonists that you're dealing with.
Right.
They've added some interesting new trials as well. And we were trying to figure out some of the stuff because some of the maps, they seem familiar, but I think for the most part, they were all new maps. And then we had, excuse me,
like half and half. Like
I'd say like half and half.
At least,
yeah.
like, the ones we were queuing, and it's like, since we haven't played the game in a few months, it's like, have we freed the prisoners before? Like, have we done that quest? You can't quite remember the exact details, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, even like the loading room where you guys are just waiting to start your trial, it was cool because they had like a Halloween kind of theme going on, and that was fun. And they added new games you can be engaging with too. But a big thing was it looked like they had this new like battle pass, kind of not battle pass, like seasons pass kind of thing. And there was like 3 of them. Pardon me. And so it looks like you do the trials, you unlock different currencies, and you can use those currencies to basically just unlock cosmetics and stuff, mostly just for your room, your cell. But that's about it. And it looks fun because they got a lot more of the challenges too. Stuff that you have to do while you're doing the trials, which is a lot of fun. You get XP. But I don't think they added any more amps because I was looking at what I had unlocked and it didn't look like there was anything else added.
Well, I think isn't that barricade one new? We were theorizing that was maybe.
Maybe I'm getting it mistaken because there's the abilities and then there's the amps because they added that barricading amp. I'm thinking of
like other like the main like the nurse lady, that lady,
the weird shadowy dame or whatever she is, and she sells you those abilities.
Yeah,
you can choose like the 3 of them.
Right. Yeah. So for anyone who forgets, Outlast Trials is the 3rd Outlast game. It's the multiplayer one we did a review for back in whatever it was, March or something, that came out with all 4 of us. So yeah, you can go back and check out that full deep review. But yeah, as you said, they've added some fair few bits of content over the, I don't know when, Halloween of course, but then I think over the summer they added some stuff. So since we've last played, there's been quite a few new additions in there. It's just fun in general to get back in there. It's such a fun game. It's funny, like the battle pass stuff, which was not in there when we first played the game. It's such a weird thing to me to have like daily and like weekly challenges in a game like Outlast Trials, because I can't imagine wanting to play Outlast every single day, like try to hit these daily challenges in the way that like Fortnite makes sense, Marvel Snap makes sense. Outlast though, like I don't think I want to play Outlast every day. That would be pretty. The game's very disturbing and gross. I can't imagine wanting that to be part of my daily ritual to make sure I'm, stabbing bodies 5 times or whatever the weird objective is that it gives you. But I think like that stuff. I mean, it's good to have in there for when we're playing, even if I'm not going for the every weekly or every daily challenge. But especially when we're doing the maps that we've done before, it gives you a little additional incentive to like, okay, since I've done this mission before, I know it, but I might as well try and go over some of these bonus objectives since I got nothing better to do while I'm going through it. It's been fun getting back in there. I think there is a good amount of new stuff, it seems like. I wish it was maybe displayed a bit better, like what is the newer things versus what is the older things. But yeah, I think even as you mentioned, like some levels, like you go back to the police station, but you're in a different area than where you were before. So it's like we're using some of the same visuals and areas, but like you're going to different areas that you were before, different objectives. But then some of the areas are just like completely new. And so we had some, I don't know, some of them, I think the more exciting ones for me were like the big new missions that had like full cutscenes in the middle with Geister, and he's going through and he's being crazy as he normally does. Their new villain. So yeah, I had a really good time going back into this, and I definitely would like to keep doing that, play through some more of this content. They added some new difficulty stuff as well. And then, as you mentioned, yeah, like there was that new amp, the Barricade one, which I finally bought it because we've always, just all of us who've used the healing one. And it's like, because it is just really good and the most consistent. But I switched over to the Barricade one and I want to start trying it out because I feel like there's some cool strategies you can come up with that, especially if we're working out as a team. Like, we don't need 4 heals or 3 heals, you know, we could afford to switch it up there. So, yeah, I don't know. It's cool. I like what they've done with this game. And yeah, I'm curious, like, how the numbers are looking for it, because like I said, it just doesn't seem like the kind of live servicey game that people are going to be wanting to playing all the time. But if they have a big enough audience that just jumps back in once or twice a month, maybe that's enough. I'm not sure, because I can't imagine everyone wanting to spend more money on this game for cosmetics. Like, it was already, what, $40 to pick it up in the first place, right?
And it's only been out for a year now, right?
Well, it came out in like, yeah, March-ish, so not we're sitting at like 3/4 of a year. Hasn't hit the 1 year mark yet.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on Outlast Trials?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I think maybe the last game I have to shout out today then is that I've been jumping back and playing a little bit of Halo Infinite. Because, well, 2 reasons. One, they had like a Halo 2. They had a Halo 2 event because that was an anniversary came up recently. And so just like they did last year, they've added like a bunch of Halo 2 maps, and then they have like a legacy mode in there. So like they took out the sprint, they made the game a bit more jumpy and floaty, like kind of the Halo 2 mechanics. So they kind of brought back all that stuff with the new map. So there's a playlist just to do that Halo 2 things. And I'm not super nostalgic about Halo 2 multiplayer. I was just played the campaign a bunch as a kid. More about the Halo 3 multiplayer stuff. But it's fun for a little variety to go in there and check that out. And like you get the Halo 2 armor for free if you just log in right now. So definitely worth doing to get that armor. That's what I'm rocking now. So it was fun. And then I had a friend over on the weekend, and we just played some split screen, just some online split screen Halo, which I feel like was, you know, middle school and high school. That's all I did all the time. So it was fun to do that again. It's been so long since I've done that, other than like when me and you have done a Halo match on like Gauntlet stuff. But to just sit back on a team, cruise through a bunch of these random playlists. I didn't know that they have like gun game in Halo, like the Call of Duty mode or the Counter-Strike mode. So that was fun to play through. Big team battle. The Halo 2 stuff did some doubles. Saw so many maps I've never seen before. So obviously they just keep churning out maps, like even outside of the Halo 2 event. But yeah, it was really fun to jump back in there. Do you have any interest in jumping into that one? Like Halo 2, were you ever playing multiplayer Halo 2, or were you more Halo 3, Halo Reach guy?
It's funny because I was Halo Combat Evolved multiplayer. Never got into Halo 2.
Okay.
A little bit of Halo 3, and then a lot of Halo Reach. A lot of Halo Reach, and a lot of Halo 4. But I do have an urge to kind of get back in there into Infinite's multiplayer. It's a shame we didn't actually whip it out on the stream. That would have been ideal.
Yeah, well, once again, it's you know, it's weird. When me and you did the Gauntlet match, like I don't think we needed we didn't need 2 Xbox accounts, but when me and my friend were going to go play online, we needed like that classic second Xbox account, like that issue we ran into with zombies on the stream or multiverses. And so my friend just like made an email real quick. It took like 10 minutes or something, but it was still annoying to have to do that. But I don't remember us having to do that when we faced off in Halo Infinite before. So I don't know what the difference was there. Maybe if you just do a custom game versus playing online, maybe that's the difference.
Because yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I was gonna say maybe the difference is playing on Games Pass versus actually owning it. But then, if I recall, I never actually owned Infinite when we were playing that here. Right. At my house. That was still on Games Pass. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, that was especially disappointing for me to see that was another thing here where you need a freaking second Xbox account. Once again, it doesn't take that long, but you still need to like put an email in there and do all this annoying stuff. because to me, Halo is such a co-op-y game. Whether that's multiplayer, going through the campaign, doing firefight, messing around in custom games, all that stuff. And so to have like that extra barrier to entry for someone to just jump in with their friend is just kind of frustrating. So now that I have that account on my Xbox, I guess I'm good moving forward. So maybe it's not a huge complaint, but it's still kind of an annoying thing. But man, I just love Halo. I think it's always what I can go back to, especially after we talked about this a bit on the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 review, that when I go into a multiplayer lobby for that, I just can't keep up anymore. Like I can play Warzone because it's a little slower paced, and you have like a shit ton of armor, so you don't die in 0.5 seconds. But Halo, the pace of that just still works for me as I'm aging and getting older and my reaction time's getting worse. Halo just like still works because it is such a tactical game, such a positional game, and it's less reaction-y and more, well, it can be reaction depending on your weapons and stuff. But yeah, man, I just love Halo. And then, did you see the other thing they did for the Halo 2 anniversary? Did you see any article about this or anything? They did a really interesting thing. This is not in Halo Infinite. This is, I believe, only through Halo 2 via the Master Chief Collection, only on Steam. Is they released like the Halo 2 E3 demo, whatever that E3 demo was back in the day. They released that as like a playable level, so you can like play through that demo now. And so yeah, once again, I think it's like through some mod thing. Like it's officially supported, but like only through Steam in this one weird way, so I couldn't do it on Xbox. But like that is just such a cool thing. I love that they added something like that. It is such a fun way to honor the anniversary of a game with cool content like that, on top of like Infinite dropping a bunch of Halo 2 stuff. Just such a, like, I don't know, Infinite is such a good game. It's so underrated. People don't give it enough praise. And yes, it launched in a weird way with all the things coming out at different times. But like it's such a good game, and there's so much love to the history of the series, and like it's such a generous battle pass too that you can get good fun unlocks even if you don't put a dime into the game like me. I don't put a dime in. That's what I'm saying. Like I've only just get my Game Pass subscription, and I feel like I'm still unlocking cool stuff all the time. So yeah, people go play Halo Infinite. Like maybe it doesn't need me to support it. It's obviously doing fine if it has all these new events. But yeah, it's a really great game, and it was fun to jump in there in the last couple weeks and play some more. And yeah, we should definitely get in there soon. What was your game mode? Did you have an ideal game mode that you would queue up when you were playing?
Oh, just Slayer.
Just
I did enjoy some big team battle because I like the
Yeah,
vehicles. I like flying around and stuff like that, but mostly just Slayer.
Okay.
I'd have to see if Ruben's still playing it because a couple weeks ago he was sending me videos. He was just like popping
Ooh.
off in Halo Infinite multiplayer. And I was like, oh my goodness. He was taking a break from Fortnite and he was getting into the Halo. So
Yeah, I'd love to play with him. That would be super fun. Yeah, I played some doubles, which doubles was one of my favorites in back in the Halo 3 days. If I had the right party, if we had more than 2 people, we wouldn't queue that up. But I just love the strategy of that. I find it so fun, just working really close in tandem with one person. I really liked SWAT back in Halo 3. I don't think they have that currently, and maybe they do as a sub mode in Infinite. But there are so many modes, and it's nice that you can like queue like any mode that you're searching. You can also like turn off any of the things. Like if you want to do big team battle but you don't want to do flags, you can like turn that off. And I don't know, it didn't really affect our queue times at all. 1 or 2 things that we queued very specifically took a little bit longer. But yeah, they do a really good job with all that stuff. So yeah, we should definitely get back in there pretty soon.
are you an oddball guy? I love oddball.
I do love Oddball. Yeah, I think it's a great game mode. What else is there to say? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites in Halo 3 for sure. Like Guardian Oddball, that was ideal. I feel like that map was like just ideal for that. You need the right map. You don't want too big of a map. You don't want any weird janky corners. You need like just the right. And I feel like Guardian, there's so many interconnected little paths there that it worked perfectly for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, shouts to Oddball. And then of course they have the weird stuff like infections in there. I don't know if they have Griffball, but like they have all sorts of crazy things in there. But yeah, even like big team battle, there's like some maps I'd not seen before. And I think that's just like a credit to like Forge mode in that game, is that sometimes I can't tell if something's like a Forge mode map or if it was like a legit map made by I almost said Bungie, but I guess now Halo Studios, as we talked about.
Halo
Studios. So like they do a really good like the Forge mode is insane now. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, the texture's kind of weird. And it's like, am I playing a custom map right now? This map looks insane for a custom map. It's very different now than it was back in the day. It was very, very bare bones, but they just keep adding to it. So it's good stuff. Taylor, anything else? Any other games you've played? Any other shout-outs? Are you picking up Stalker? Are you going to play that this week? Or are you just looking forward to Indiana Jones?
Just looking forward to Indiana Jones.
That's probably the last new game of the year you're going to be playing, I assume.
Probably. There is another game, and again, it's a handheld game that I've been playing. But I know you know, it's not like Marvel Snap, but well, maybe it's kind of similar to a Marvel Snap. It's the Pokemon trading card game Pocket.
You've been playing this? What are you
I'm
doing
playing
holding
it.
back here? Tell me about this thing. Tell me all about it.
So I've been going through like a rough patch with just buying Pokemon cards, just been collecting and everything like that. It's brutal.
I didn't
It's
know
brutal.
where you were going when you said I've been in a rough patch. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
you
right.
didn't
Poor
tell me.
choice of words. It's a very expensive hobby, and so you just gotta properly gauge yourself. And some of my friends, they've been buying packs too, and there's new packs coming out, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, well, in the downtime, when I'm not trying to buy packs, let's try out this game. This game just came out, and it's doing a great job of just kind of satisfying that urge to open up packs and buy packs. Now they only have the one set right now, but they have 3 different pack styles with different cards. So you can try and complete the full set.
Mm-hmm.
And you have full arts and you have other cards and stuff like that, different variants of certain Pokemon. But it's a lot of fun. And you basically do different challenges, daily challenges, do different things in the game, and then you can unlock the ability to open up more packs. You open up 1 pack a day, but then you can get little other things to open up more
Sounds
packs,
like
get more cards.
cigarettes.
Oh yeah,
1 pack
I
a day.
sound like I'm smoking cigarettes.
I'm on 2 packs a day now. Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun being able to just rip the packs and see what kind of Pokemon that you get from each one. And so I've been trying to boost up my collection, and I've been getting some really cool like full art cards, and you can pop them up and you can like spin them around and see like the 3D foil effects and stuff. They look really, really cool. But I'm trying to hopefully remind people here, like, don't go crazy and buy packs. I don't think you should spend an actual dime buying packs on this game because they're all just digital. I think if you're going to spend actual money, go buy a real pack because there's a chance you could pull that $800 Surging Sparks Pikachu card. Like, don't invest in the digital stuff like this. You're just trading in money for nothing. But that aside,
I mean,
instead,
with that argument, like, isn't that every video game ever?
yes, absolutely. But I would prioritize those over this because this is just you on your phone and just your digital collection. I don't see much gain,
there's
whereas
still a game to play. It's not just collecting, right? You also battle and stuff.
you also do battle, yes. But I mean, you can rent decks. They have decks that are pre-built. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can tackle this. And in theory, like the game's not trying to leech your wallet or get you to spend tons of money. It does a great job at actually allowing you to have fun without actually spending money. For the most part, I can open up like 2-3 packs a day because I'm just doing different challenges and stuff like that. And the battling I just got into, and so I got my friends into this. Now they're playing it like crazy, and the battling is a lot of fun because I've never actually known how to battle in Pokemon before. And so I did a quick tutorial in here, and it's like, oh wow, this is actually really easy. And that's a lot of fun too. So I'm gonna try to get to a point where I can build a deck with the cards that I've collected so far. I've gotten like over 250 for the set so far.
Ooh,
so there's a lot, and I've been seeing people say like, oh, even if you're buying packs, it'll take over 2 years to complete the whole set, and just other crazy things, crazy weird little facts. But sounds like Marvel Snap. Yeah, it's honestly a lot of fun. I'm quite enjoying it. It's a good pastime, and yeah, I'm just gonna keep on ripping packs and battling and trying to learn a little bit more about the game.
Yeah, is it just the original 150 right now, the Gen 1?
No, it has Gen 1 in there, but it's got a whole variety of other Pokemon across the gens. A lot that I am very much unfamiliar with.
And so Marvel Snap, they release like 1 card every week, and then each season also gets like a bonus. There's a week that, 2 cards. What is that? Like, are they adding things frequently? Have they added new stuff since you started playing? Or how's that working with that game?
I would say they've not added anything since I've started playing.
Okay.
Because basically, I don't know how well you can see it, but you have those 3 packs that you can choose from, and they're all part of the one set called Genetic Apex. And so basically, you just need to
Do you have a pack available right now?
I wish I did.
Okay.
All I got are like the cards
Next time,
here that I've
we'll do
unlocked.
live unpacking.
Yes, sounds good. But yeah, no, it's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. What's your like main deck right now in that game?
For battling?
Like for battling, yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I just did the tutorial today and
Oh,
was just starting to actually like break into it, but I mean,
I
I
thought
have
you said you have
two
over 250 cards.
that I've been collecting, but I haven't built a deck yet. So
Oh, okay.
basically,
Oh, okay.
the
Interesting.
deck that I've been using is a pre-built one.
So wait, you
Uh,
can you do daily and weekly challenges without actually fighting in the game?
yeah, you can do challenges where you're like collecting cards, opening packs, stuff like that, or you can do actual like the battling.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, the rental decks are interesting. I think you can only rent a certain amount, but you could do like a Brock deck. They got a Machamp deck,
Okay.
Lieutenant Surge, Mewtwo, Venusaur deck, and then there's my decks, which apparently I have a Sand Slash deck, which is
Ooh,
what the
I like
game
Sand Slash.
gave
That's
me.
cool.
So each one is made of like 20 cards. Well, it's prompted me to build a
I
deck.
like
I'm gonna have
Sandshrew
to do
more
that.
than Sand Slash, but of course, Sand Slash is better.
Sand Slash. Yeah. I'm a Growlithe guy. Well, I'm more of an Arcanine guy than a Growlithe guy, but yeah.
With the card collecting outside the game now, just talking real life with you, and you said that you've been in a bad place lately, just going ham on these cards. What what's your goal with that? Are you trying to like make money by like getting good things and then reselling them? Are you trying to get specific cards right now to complete a set? Like what's your goal? Do you have a goal, or are you just smoking a pack a day kind of thing?
Smoking a pack a day. When I first started really looking into the Pokemon cards, I was looking at what other people were investing in, what they were trying to collect, and all that kind of stuff. Because I thought, okay, well, you know what? Maybe there is a path here forward where you can collect certain cards, and so I have spreadsheets documenting prices and days and stuff like that that I created, and I've just kind of created this whole tracking thing for it. And so I started collecting certain cards that I know that I like. And then when I got a few cards that I like, and there's still a lot more that I like that I want, I started to keep an eye out for, okay, what are other people collecting as well? And I'm not necessarily looking at reselling it.
Mm.
I'm trying to collect things that have value to the community. And so those are the things that I'm trying to hold on to for a long period of time, because maybe I'm being hypocritical, but maybe 20 years, 30 years from now, maybe I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to sell it. Sure. But for now, these things, there's certain things that I really like certain trainer boxes that I think are
Mm-hmm.
really cool because they have a potential of pulling a certain, like a Moonbryon or something like that. There's certain cards that are highly sought after. But now it's kind of just transitioned into like, there's things I'm collecting just for me. I know I want to get a base set Pokemon pack, booster pack. That's like $500 and it's expensive, but I want one just for my own personal collection, not to open it, just to keep it like keep it there
Wow.
because like, oh, this is just a piece of like 90s history and this is just
Yeah.
so wonderful. But there are a few things lately, and I've been kicking myself because they recently announced a Pokemon Prismatic Evolutions, and it's just an Eevee on the front, and it's just all can't say it, Eevee evolutions, a whole bunch of like full art cards, and just like dedicating to that. It's just like it's beautiful, and I'm so mad because I thought, oh, maybe I should pre-order a box, and I didn't, and now they're sold out. It's been sold out
Mm.
constantly, like everywhere. I'm so mad because I thought, oh, I would have loved to have just had that for my collection, just because it's Eevee related. So I missed that ship. That's unfortunate. But I've been buying Surging Sparks packs, and that's been the latest and greatest. Because I don't know how the people do it, but there's a Pikachu card in there that's worth over $800, and it's just crazy that people
Juicy.
drive these prices up. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's maybe I'll start battling now that I'm learning through the app.
Yeah, that's cool if it can kind of teach you those mechanics and then bring it out to the.
Hmm.
Do you think is it simple enough that it'd work pretty well and fun with a card game format, like playing it in person?
I think so. It seems it's a lot more simple than Yu-Gi-Oh.
Right.
Well, what Yu-Gi-Oh is now, it's a lot more simple.
Yes. Base Yu-Gi-Oh was pretty
Yes.
simple, but
Yes.
it's gotten savage these days, no doubt. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that you were playing that one, so that's cool. I have been taking a break from Marvel Snap
Oh,
lately. So we traded places. You're on Pokemon and I'm off Snap.
we did. When I'm off of Pokemon, you'll be back on Snap.
Yeah, we'll just be passing the packs around. Smoking them like crazy. Okay, Taylor, anything else or is that all for today?
I think that's everything.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week, as we always are. And yeah, let us know what you think of the Game Award nominees. Do you have any issues with Elden Ring, or do you want to see it win? Let us know. Thank you. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.